Okay, so as promised, my number one secret exercise for having bulletproof knees. I got this from Ben Patrick, again, of the ATG System Athletic Truth Group, or better known as Knees Over Toes guy. And he got it from Chinese and East Asian culture, as well as Finnish logging. So the exercise, I won't make you wait too long for it. The exercise is simply walking backwards or walking backwards with resistance. Now, in East Asia for hundreds of years probably, they've been doing this, just walking backwards as a way to improve their knee health. There's even Qigong techniques where you kind of pulse the Qi and whatnot through your legs as you're doing it. You know, I married a girl who was born and raised in Japan, and her mother was born and raised in Japan. And when I asked her mom, like, have you ever met anyone with a knee or hip replacement in Japan? She could hardly think of one person. So there's something they're doing in East Asia that is better for their joints. I think they just put less stress on them in general, but it is quite popular once you get into middle age and older to start implementing backwards walking. So the reason for this is we spend our whole life walking forwards, putting the stress on the knees in a very particular direction. So when we start walking backwards, we start training the knees in the opposite direction and helping to strengthen them from sort of both sides. Now, what Ben Patrick saw was that not just this backwards walking in East Asia was helping people's knees, but also that there was another case in Finland where the loggers had a practice, people who cut down trees, had a practice of when they want to drag those heavy logs out of the forest, they didn't do it by walking forward and pulling the log behind them, but rather they do it by strapping the log to their front and dragging the log backwards. And that these people had much better outcomes for their knees than the average logger or person doing heavy labor activities would normally have. So basically, the secret to backwards walking, can you see my feet here? Yep. Secret to backwards walking is, as we walk backwards, we want to start with minimal resistance. So just on flat ground, doing it for 5 to 10 minutes per session, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. It's usually a good place to start. But basically, as you walk, you want to put your toes behind your knee. So we're not walking like this, where our feet are kind of staying ahead of our knees. We're walking like this, where we're really reaching back with the toe behind the knee. And this is what is going to start to strengthen the knee, being strong in this position, not here, but here. The knee slightly over the toe and knee both kind of behind us. So that's how we start walking, just kind of going for strolls like this. Maybe you can walk with a buddy where they're walking forwards in front of you and they can watch behind you, make sure you're not walking into anybody. Try to do that 5 to 10 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week to start. If you want to start adding resistance, which can really start to strengthen the ligaments and connective tissue and everything in the knees, I did this. My knees were falling apart. My mom had knee replacements by the time she was my age. So genetically, my knees were not necessarily predestined to do great. But I started implementing this and basically completely saved my knees, it seems like. So for, however long it lasts, it's been maybe a year now since I started doing this. My knees basically don't have any pain anymore. So it's pretty effective. So if you want to start adding to it, what you can do is start using a slope. So basically doing the same walking pattern, very light, just going uphill. If that starts to feel good, you can go through both of those phases with no pain. Then you can start adding resistance against something. So instead of just gravity, one thing you can kind of do, most people could find a treadmill. And what you do is basically, normally you'd be walking and the handlebar of the treadmill and the controls and everything, they'd be in front of you. Well, basically, instead you get your butt against that and you walk backwards on the treadmill, but with it turned off. So normally the treadmill's on and that, the tread is moving and you're just kind of trying not to get pulled along it, right? But instead, when it's off, you really have to push against the tread to get it to move. And so this creates a lot of resistance for the knees. And so again, you just try to do the same thing, get the toe behind the knee and push from there, and just have your butt or your hips against the handlebar of the treadmill so you have something to support you as you do that. And finally, this is the one that's a little bit more of the high-tech option. Most people won't have this, but if your gym has a sled and a sled pushing area, sometimes they'll have that green AstroTurf that people do sprints and stuff on, and sometimes they'll have that sled that football players will push. You can grab one of those sleds, and if you get a rope between the sled, you wrap it around your low, sort of the back of your hip area. Try not to pull it with your arms if you can. Get it around the back of your hips so that you're kind of pushing with the back of your hips against the rope as you drag the sled. and then you can start stacking weight on the sled. And again, you want to do this 5 to 10 minutes. So pick a weight or a resistance level, whether that's just walking uphill, or walking with resistance. Find something that you can actually maintain for 5 to 10 minutes, because it's that light, continual activity that starts to put the stress signal into the ligaments and cartilage in the knee and get that blood flowing in there. So when we're doing, heavy squats or lunges or something where we're only doing, 30 seconds, a minute per set, that's sending the signal more to the muscles to grow. And it's these kind of lower intensity, longer period stresses that send the signal to the connective tissues to develop and grow. So hopefully those help you out. Try it for a few months. Again, just 2 to 3 times a week, 5 to 10 minutes, and just kind of build up from the walking to the uphill to the resistance, and let me know if it helps your knees. So if you got a lot out of this video and you haven't seen my other 2 in this series on the knees, I'll link them somewhere around here. You can click them. One's a Qigong routine. It kind of combines Qigong and some of these other exercises from Ben Patrick's Knees Over Toes program. And the other one is some things to look out for if you're already into Qigong and Tai Chi, where some people actually do some damage to their knees. So it's just some bad habits to look out for. So click around here and see you in the next video.